All right. Welcome back, my fellow agents. It is I, X7, your master of mirth, and the host of Xenorama, the podcast of heroes and monsters. Today, we are going to be talking about the very first, well, it's a comedy, but it kind of falls in the realm of fantasy simply due to the setup. But the very first in a series of 7 movies about a talking mule that originally started out in the army. So this is Francis from 1950, starring Donald O'Connor, who you should know from, of course, this Singing in the Rain, and Patricia Medina, who you should know, uh, and Ray Collins. Where is our uh, Perry Mason sting? And of course, Francis. But before we get too much further into it, please like, share, subscribe. Leave me a comment. Let me know. Have you seen these movies? We're all done in about a 7-year period. Six movies, right? 6, 7. I don't know. I think there's seven total. So in a 7-year period, and all of them starred Donald O'Connor, except for the very last one, which starred Mickey Rooney. So let me know what you think about it, and if you could watch just a little longer. This shouldn't take too long at all. We all know who all the main people are, but just watch a little longer. And are you ready? We'll get rolling here, and I think I've even got some new stuff to add.
Meet Commando Cody, Sky Marshal of the Universe. He's the new screen sensation everybody's cheering in Republic's serial thriller, Radar Men from the Moon. When the Moon Monsters, under the direction of Rettig, ruthless dictator of the Moon, scheme to invade the Earth.
And have your ray gun set up ready to blast them. This time you must not fail.
Yes, Your Excellency.
The nations of the world appeal to Commando Cody, Sky Marshal of the Universe.
Cody and his assistants must be destroyed.
Okay, we'll go back to town and get him.
The first to see an actual invasion from the moon. In Republic's Radar Men from the Moon.
So we start out here with books here, and one of them, they're probably all real books for all I know. They probably didn't pay anybody residuals for them, but there we see a book called Francis. Now, I didn't know this was based on a book. How about that? Francis. And it's not, even though everyone calls the first one Francis the Talking Mule, it's just called Francis. Starring Donald O'Connor and many other very famous people. It's was released March 15th, 1950 in New York, February 8th, 1950 in New Orleans, made, of course, by Universal International. The alleged budget is $622,000. Now, there's also a disagreement with that. Somebody said it was $150,000, and it made $2.9 million in U.S. rentals. So it was a big hit. It's very silly. It's very silly, but the actors are good. They take. I mean, it's a comedy, obviously. And there's introducing Francis, which they had 3 mules that played Francis, and in black and white, you'd never know. David Stern wrote the screenplay adapted from the novel by David Stern and directed by Arthur Lubin, who was tired of watching philosophical, depressing movies and he wanted to do something light. Couldn't get much lighter than this. So there we begin at the Commercial State Bank, Fred's Bank. Everyone is looking askance at poor old Peter Sterling, who was Donald O'Connor. Now, he was still 2 years away from starring in Singing in the Rain, one of the greatest movies ever. Um, but he's really good in this. He's 25 years old. I think, if my math is right, he's about 25, 24. And this is set after World War II because everyone's talking about him, for whatever weird reason. And they don't want to be associated with him. And that's the bank manager. He is played by Charles Meredith as Monroe, the bank manager. Um, and there, so he calls him in. He's going to have a meeting. He wants to know why they're talking about him. He's like, well, let me tell you. Make it brief. So it was brief the movie only runs 90 minutes only. And it's only brief for about 85 minutes. His story is brief. So he tied an onion to his belt, and he didn't even take the ferry to Shelbyville, now did he? And he's lost from his patrol, and he runs into camouflage. Nope, wrong war, wrong. That's a whole nother song. He runs into a talking mule named Francis. He gets Lieutenant Second Class Sterling gets injured because the enemy's all around him. Now, the enemy is the Japanese, and they do use a rather derogatory term for them, and I'm not going to just because, but it was only 5 years after the war, 4 years after the war ended, 4 or 5 years. My math is bad. Francis saves him and takes him into town. He hops on his back. Now he's getting rescued, and he's talking to people, and he tells them that the talking mule saved him. The talking mule is voiced by Chill Wills, who has that sonorous voice, and he's very funny. There's a lot of very funny lines in here. The mule has a very dim opinion of officers in the army and reporters. But he manages to smart off to him a lot, and he can get away with it because he's a stubborn old mule. They do use the term jackass a lot, which is right there. So they're examining his brain to see why he thinks the mule is talking to him. There is Zazu Pitts as Nurse Valerie Humpert, and she's quite funny. They have a good chemistry. The whole cast is quite good. So Sterling is there being sent to Colonel Plepper, played by Edward Franz. He was in the Ten Commandments. He was Jethro in Cecil B. DeMille's Ten Commandments. I bet he had more than a sixth grade education, but that's what he's reading. And obviously he's got Buddhist stuff around him. And he thinks he's crazy and just needs to, we can solve this by getting you a job. And there is Lieutenant Tragg. Obviously, that is Ray Collins as Colonel Hooker. There's Patricia Medina as Maureen Gelder, an alleged daughter of a shop dealer in Morocco or something, probably at the Blue Parrot. But she just needs some sanctuary, so there she is. And all the men are like, hubba hubba. And really, she's got a great French accent. She speaks French. I don't know if she spoke French in real life, but she did a great job here. And now they're all trying to figure out if he's nuts. So their people are applying for the espionage or G2 division, spying and such, Army intelligence. I don't know why that says Los Angeles city limit. But they're not in Los Angeles. It was shot around there, but they weren't in there. They're in Burma. So everyone's dancing with her. And, there's Francis snooping about, and the nurse. Now, Sterling is very taken with Maureen. And women named Maureen can have that effect on people. Not that your humble agent would ever know or admit. Shut up, Lilith, if you've watched this far. And he gets a message from Francis. Now, how do you suppose? He's just dumb. But he's a second Louis, so go figure. Yeah, I can use army terms. I learned that from Superman. Off he goes into the Burmese jungle. Finds Francis, and he's like, your boys are making fun of you. They're ribbing you, you dimwit. But he tells him, let's go, let's make a hero out of you. Come back here at night. Off he goes, and they arrest two Japanese snipers who speak very good English because the tall one there is, um, Francis is behind him and wants to know if he's from Harvard. He says, no, I'm a Yaley. So go figure. Now, Bob's a Yaley. Sideshow Bob was from Yale. So Colonel Hooker wants to give him a cigarette. He doesn't smoke. He refuses every time. And he wants to know how he knew about the snipers. And he ends up in the psychopathic ward. They don't call it psychiatric. He's not really a psychopath. He's not running around killing people, but he's weaving a basket. This is a running gag. So now they need him. Now they're interrogating him. Why does he think that? He's like, Blepper there, Plepper, pardon me, says he needs action. So off he goes on a patrol to this place, Hill X246 campsite. So they're pretty close, but there's a. So somehow Francis calls him on the phone. How do you dial? Did he just say connect me to BR549? Probably. And he actually said this about the Japanese that are surrounding the camp, that they don't know that we know. And if you know what I'm talking about, could and don't tell anyone, Joey. Couldn't if I wanted to. So, and that is Sergeant Chillingbacher, Frank Phelan, who is a bit player and character actor, generally a tough guy. He would have fit right in with Sergeant Rock. Although if he'd have bucked Sergeant Rock, he'd have got smashed in the mush for it. Probably Dum Dum would have done it too. Oh, that's the Howling Commandos, not Easy Company. So Francis is there with him. They set up a trap. They make a big bonfire and put the tents out in the open, but there's nobody there. So of course the Japanese attack and they get wiped out. They just machine gun them down. They were going to do the same thing probably. So once again, he says, "How'd you do it? What's your source?" And he tells him, "Oh, his basket's getting bigger. I don't know what he's going to put in that thing. But he's very talented." So, and look who's visiting. It's Maureen. Maureen, that skinny little hell and beans. That's a Nick Lowe song. I think we reviewed it on 7 Song Friday, but I couldn't tell you which one. Anyway, she wants to know what's going on. Uh-oh, there's a signal. It's in code, and she knows the code. Uh-oh. He jumps out the window because she distracts the guards because she's very womanly. And he's looking for Francis, and then she follows him. And Francis, of course, will not talk in front of her, even though Francis tells Sterling, "Oh, she's quite the dish." Just his facials, because he knows this is silly. Now, I wonder if Chill Wills was reading the lines off camera to him. I wonder if they have any. Well, I'm sure they don't because we'd have found them by now. But bloopers of this would have been pretty funny, probably. Now they adapted this. They made 6 sequels, and then Mr. Ed was the same people. And I don't know if Donald O'Connor was in Mr. Ed. I used to love Mr. Ed as a kid. Let's see, was he in Mr. Ed? Looking here. I should have just typed in Mr. Ed. Let's do that instead. But yeah, he got famous for this. And while we're looking, so she brought help, and then they skedaddle. Let's see. Was in syndication and was popular enough to run for how many seasons? 6 seasons, 143 episodes. Oh, it's Alan Young, so it was not. Okay, so but it's the same premise that a talking horse. Now, interestingly, they do ask Francis how he learned to talk, and he was Francis is very vague about how he learned to speak and why his brain. Obviously, he's a mutant, right? Or perhaps he was transmogrified from a man into some sort of army experiment. I doubt. I've only ever seen one other. Well, as growing up, they were on all the time, but I knew what they were, but The only one we ever watched was Francis Joins the Wax, or something like that. I remember thinking it was pretty funny, but I haven't seen any of them. This is the first time I've ever seen this movie. Anyway, once again, Colonel Hooker wants to know what happened. Actually, he tells him. I got ahead of myself there. He tells him that the enemy is going to do an airstrike at 4:35 p.m. the following day. So they scramble the base, and there's a lot of stock footage here. It's 4:30, 4:35. No one's shown up. Sterling goes to yell at Francis, and he's like, "Just hold your horses there, dude." And then the bombers show up, or the jets do, and then our boys, the anti-aircraft anti-aircraft artillery, and then our fleet shows up. They wipe them out. And of course, Colonel Hooker wants to know how it happened. So guess what? Back into the psychopathic ward. I mean, she's calling him, our regular. And then General Blandings. No, that's not who it is. Did that on purpose. That would be General Stevens, played by John McIntyre, right? Yes, John McIntyre. Yeah. Okay. So, and he shows up, and he's like, "What's really going on? Just tell me that." He's like, "Well, let's go meet Francis." So he goes and meets him, gives Francis a whole bunch of orders. He's at attention with his tail up and his ears forward. Does about face, right face, left face. He's really well trained. And finally, Francis has had enough of that because he calls Sterling a gold bricker or something. And he's like, "Well, that's the first thing you said." So, of course, he's gives him all the answers, but he doesn't tell him out. He gives him where he was. He was lost from his unit, and it's all right. And he says, "Okay, I'll get you. I'll spring you from the psychopathic ward, and we'll get everything situated." But and they talk, and there's some funny lines about, "Are you sure you want people to know that you've talked to a talking donkey?" He's like, "Oh, all right." And now they want to know what's going on, and the doctors are all back here examining the modern major general there. So General Stevens is not thrilled. And then suddenly we hear the voice of Tokyo Rose, who has gotten information that the general is taking advice from a donkey named Francis. So the press corps is showing up, and now they're in damage control. He's insisting that he's going to get him. So he has Sterling bring Francis in, who won't talk. And then so that is Tony Curtis right there as Captain Jones. But you got to start somewhere. So Francis won't talk. And then he asks him who else he talked to. And he said, "I didn't tell anybody about Francis except for Maureen." And at least Colonel Hooker's not an idiot. So he goes off to get Maureen. And then Francis talks, and the general's all happy again. He's like, "This is from, I'm a laughing stock." But now they think that, they've got a spy because Maureen's been spy. They've hidden them into a little behind the scenes back here. There's a press report, and there she is. And they're like, "Of course she's not interested in Sterling. He's a dope. He's a dimwit." And he comes out and says, "No, she's wonderful, blah, blah, blah." And then the horse says, and then Francis, not the horse, Francis comes out and says, she's got him tied up so many ways he can't think straight. So talking in front of everybody. And now they're all like, "Okay." So they take her away. This is where Francis tells him what he thinks of the press. But taking pictures, and now everything's copacetic. Francis is going to go back to the States to be studied. And he's like, "I'm going to miss you there, Sterling." And he's going back to be with them because they're buddies. And I don't think he's getting discharged. But then they get the news. The plane went down. All of everybody on board parachuted out, but Francis wouldn't leave the plane. And then we fade back into his onion is off his belt now, and he's fine. And he says, no, I found him. He landed in Louisiana, but I went down and searched for him and found him. He lives with me now. What? It's, that's the minion. There he is. And he's Francis says something to him, and he faints. Here we go again. That's the end of the movie. So it's a very enjoyable movie. I mean, it's very silly. We will be reviewing the entire series, but not very often. I mean, just whenever we need a break from, the regular genre stuff. But it does, I think, qualify as a fantasy with the Talking Mule, right? I mean, I'm not alone in that. I can't be. So tomorrow is Wednesday, and I'm really not 100% sure of what I'm going to be reviewing. It might be merchandise. So we'll find some new stuff that I've acquired over the holidays. I mean, I know there's a video up, but this just will be something else, I think. But until that next assignment, my fellow. All right. Just what? Hope you've stuck around this long. Until our next assignment, this is X7 signing off and phasing out. And just remember, if you do hear a voice that's talking to you and you don't know where it came from, it just might be an animal. Just ask Charlotte or Wilbur or Mr. Ed. Be seeing you.
A smog-breathing mastodon of destruction challenges Godzilla. Godzilla versus the smog monster. Can Godzilla conquer this man-killer? Godzilla versus the smog monster. Rated G.